Torah-keeping Christian friend explained to me, he said, look, you see, it's very clear. Yeshua didn't come to do away with the Torah. Not even the most minutest point of the Torah, the jots and the tittles, the dots and the dashes, even the smallest points of Torah, even those Yeshua didn't come to do away with. I thought this was very interesting and really very refreshing. This was certainly much better than the Torah is a curse and Jesus died to set them free from the curse. And I said, okay, so this means you do everything that it says in the Torah, the most minutest points. The jots and the tittles, everything in the Torah you do. And he says, yes, everything in the Torah, but, knew there was a but coming there, but there are certain things that Yeshua did do away with. Okay, I figured, it was too good to be true. For example, like what, I asked him, and he explained to me that originally in the Torah there was a commandment that before a person eats, that they must wash their hands. And Yeshua came and did away with this old ritual, this extraneous ritual. And I said, I grew up as a Pharisee, washing my hands before I eat several times a day, 2 or 3 times a day. Every time I went to eat a proper meal, I had to go through the Pharisee ritual of washing the hands. And so I immediately said to him, okay, you're telling me Yeshua did away with this law from the Torah. Where does it say in the Torah that a person must wash their hands before they eat? Because I knew it wasn't in the Torah. But he was sure it had to be there, and he opens up to Leviticus, and he starts flipping through the pages trying to find it. It had to be in, with all those rituals and sacrifices in Leviticus and Numbers, and he can't find it. And I'm telling him it's not there. And after a little while, he believes me and says, okay, well, if this isn't from the Torah, then where is it from? And I was raised with this rabbinical practice, and so I knew it wasn't from the Torah. And before I explain to you where it comes from, let me illustrate to you what it actually means to wash the hands. This is a special ritual that the Pharisees practice. And the Pharisee ritual of washing the hands, the Pharisee ritual of washing the hands begins with a special jug that fulfills certain requirements and specifications. And you take that jug, and by the way, if I take a bar of soap and rub it over my hands and put water on them, I have not fulfilled the ritual of washing my hands. I have to use the jug and do a specific ritual. The ritual begins, I pour water over my left hand, then I pour water over my right hand, and then I do this a second time, pour water over my left hand, and pour water over my right hand. And according to some traditions, I do this a third time. I pour water over my left hand, and pour water over my right hand. And I still have not fulfilled the Pharisee ritual of washing the hands, because I have not done the most important part of this ritual. And the key part of this ritual I have not done is the blessing that comes after the actual pouring of the water. And the blessing in Hebrew goes as follows: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim, which translated into English reads, Blessed art thou, Lord, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, commanding us to wash the hands. And this is what Pharisees say every time they eat bread, every time they sit down for a proper meal. They wash their hands and make this blessing. And I actually grew up with this blessing, saying this on a daily basis. And at a certain point, I went to my rabbis and I said, we're saying this all the time, several times a day. Where are we actually commanded to wash the hands? If we're making this blessing, commanding us to wash the hands, where is that commandment in the Torah? And I'd already by this point started to study Torah. And they explained to me that there's actually nowhere in the Torah are we commanded to wash the hands. However, the rabbis have made what's called a rabbinical enactment. The rabbis, according to the rabbis, have the authority to make enactments that add new laws to the Torah, add new laws that the people must follow. And these rabbinical enactments, these are called in Hebrew by the Hebrew word Takanot. Takanot refers to these rabbinical enactments. That's really a very important concept, Takanot. That's something we're going to see again later tonight. So let's everybody say together this word, Takanot. Okay, so these Takanot are these rabbinical enactments, and the classic example of one of the Takanot is the commandment of the rabbis to wash the hands. Well, I asked my rabbi, okay, the rabbis made this enactment to wash the hands. Why are we blessing God for commanding us to do that? And my rabbis explained to me that God has given the rabbis the authority to make these enactments, and by obeying the rabbis, you're indirectly obeying God. Now, I asked, where do the rabbis given the authority to make these enactments? And they said, stop asking so many questions. And actually, we're going to see a little bit later what the real source for that is, and it's quite shocking. But so this, the washing of the hands is one of these rabbinical takanot. And when I explained this to my Torah-keeping Christian friend, he was in shock. He couldn't believe it, because he had been certain this was a law from the Old Covenant that Yeshua died to set him free from. And when I showed him this is actually a man-made law that the rabbi sat down one day and enacted, he said, okay, well, what's going on here? Let's go back to Matthew 15 and see what's really happening, because he had completely missed this. Is this really reflected in Matthew 15? And we looked at Matthew 15, verses 2 to 3, and there the Pharisees come to Yeshua, and they say to him, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. Yeshua answered and said to the Pharisees, why do you also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? Now, when I read this, it was immediately obvious to me that there's a very sharp contrast here between the tradition of the elders and the commandment of God. The tradition of the elders and the commandment of God are two separate and distinct things. And what Yeshua is saying is that these tradition of the elders, these Takanot, these man-made laws of the Pharisees, they are a transgression of the commandment of God.